Good evening, everyone. First of all, I hard forked the presentation in a non-compatible way with the website. I told everybody that I was about to speak about the 4 types of use cases, and I will talk about the 5 types. So it's growing over the time during the afternoon. I thought about something that wasn't there actually, so I hard forked. I think that somebody already knows me. The people here in the first and third BIP already knows me, so I will cut it short. I am a theoretical physicist, theoretically, I never practiced, and I worked in Accenture in fintech for a while, and then in 2013 I thought that I actually can change the world with Bitcoin and screw up governments everywhere and all that stuff, and so I started to work 24 hours now, but a little less, but let's say 16 hours a day about that. And I participated to a lot of very little startup, very experimental startups, some mining, some wallets, working with Lawrence knowing readdress and something else. And then in 2016, at the beginning, I created the Blockchain Lab, which is basically, just a few words about it. It is a compensation chambers, an arbitrage box, where we arbitrage between guys with a lot of money but very little clues about what's going on, about blockchain and Bitcoin and crypto space and stuff. And on the other end, experts that are very good in their stuff and they know their stuff, but the problem is that they don't have structure, they don't have a pool of common, of shared knowledge, they don't have a place to stay to compare, confront, and integrate their standards, their specification. Just to give you an example of what Blockchain Lab does, we hosted Scaling Bitcoin 3 in October in our lab in Milan, and after that there was an hackathon, of 2 hackathons actually, and one hackathon of Bitcoin Core, generically working on Bitcoin. I will try to stay very neutral and be a blockchain speaker here, but I am a little bit a Bitcoin maximalist. I grow a Bitcoin maximalist. Oh, indeed, okay. So this is a full disclosure, okay. I am a little bit a Bitcoin maximalist, and there was a Bitcoin Core meetup, 3 days of hackathon, and also there was a Lightning Network hackathon in the next table in our office. So what happened is that 4 of the 6 companies that are actually building the Lightning Network solutions, so Bitfury, Lightning Labs, Blockstream, AmicoPay, were at that table exchanging among them all the specifications, so sharing all the knowledge to reach interoperability, so to get to stay on the same page and to have something that works better because it is interoperable between different solutions. And they called it Protocol Milano, so they recognize that the idea of gather them is something that seems obvious, but it is not. And basically, we also provide investment. We have an investment fund. Now it is in Luxembourg. We provide money for the startups and so on. So that's the activity. I will talk about blockchain use cases, just 10 minutes or so, maybe a little less, to remind everyone what a blockchain actually is and why does a blockchain exist at all. Of course, not because I'm a maximalist, but because history is history. We will start with the invention of the blockchain concept. In the paper, there is no mention of blockchain, but soon later there was blockchain, 2 separated words, as a continuous way to name the ledger of Bitcoin. So what were the technological challenges of Bitcoin? Basically, 2, historically, this is not a point, this is not an ideological point about it being right or wrong, that's just an historical fact. The 2 main reasons about all the research that was taking place in the years before Bitcoin and of Bitcoin itself were transaction independence and asset independence? Well, when I talk about transaction independence, we talk about anonymity. Of course, in Bitcoin, we also talk about pseudo-anonymity because it's less strong, but with Lightning Network, we are getting back to talk about anonymity with Tumblebit, with Mimblewimble, with Zcash, with Monero. There is a lot of work, of course, about fungibility and anonymity. Basically, the possibility that I cannot, that I can protect myself by a powerful entity that will attack me if I use my property in a way that he doesn't like, or she doesn't like, or it doesn't like. So the protection of the financial privacy of people, and also censorship resistance. So this is actually one of the first use cases. I want to donate to WikiLeaks. I don't care if it's not anonymous. I don't care because I will not suffer consequences after donating to WikiLeaks, but they will just censor my transaction through PayPal and through Visa and through MasterCard. They will not allow me to do what I want to do with my money because of ideological or political stances. So these are a little bit separate questions, but they could be all maybe comprehended into censorship resistance, because anonymity is just a way to prevent an ex post censorship where I have to suffer consequences because of what I've done with my money. So the solution to this transaction independence from central party was not the blockchain. Not at all. The first solution, there is also something before, but the first solution that is very similar to Bitcoin and a lot of works that is called blockchain today, but is not actually a chain and doesn't comprehend blocks, so it's not a blockchain. It's Hcash. So in 1990, so a lot of time ago, and basically, the first experiment to reach an independence of assets is also so this side of the problem is to have an asset that orthogonally to the fact that it can be censored or traced or not, it can be inflated or deflated or manipulated as basis because I can control all the money in my wallet, but if somebody controls the value of that money, manipulating it in various ways, of course my control is compromised. So if you get back at the first experiment about PayPal, in PayPal, they actually tried to make a currency, not just a payment system at the beginning. But that was stopped due to mainly regulatory problems and legal problems. Also, if you get back to Second Life game, Second Life was very interesting because aside from insurance product, real estate markets inside Second Life, there was a huge monetary market based on Linden dollars that were exchangeable across different platforms because the APIs were open and free to use. So there was actually an economy with a new independent asset with Linden Labs acting as a central bank. Of course, they politely asked them to stop, and they did stop. They closed the API, they pegged the Linden dollar with the American US dollar, and so it was not an independent asset anymore. There is also another interesting but very, very niche attempt in 1998 to get to an independent asset. So using something called well, I will explain a little bit more later, but Hashcash, so this invention by Dr. Adam Beck, there was a way to transact not just the promise of Linden Labs or the promise of PayPal, but something that could be cryptographically verified through a proof of work. So in 1998, proof of work was already there. So we have also people trying to do both things, to have an independent transaction system with an independent asset. And we get like eGold, which if you look for it in Wikipedia was something huge at Central Point, but then there were minor legal problems like well, the serious legal problem. And also Liberty Reserve. They used both the cryptographic system of eCash, and they issued a new independent asset based on gold or on silver. There is a problem in all these attempts. They all have a centralized point of failure. This is the Napster problem. Napster was a very funny thing. When I was in high school, the computer room of the school was always unusable because everybody was downloading MP3. Not me, of course, because it is illegal. But my cousin and my friends, yeah, they did. I never did, of course. But everybody except me was. And the system was not centralized. The files were actually on different computers of the network, but there was one central point of failure, actually two. One was a server, some servers with all the indexes of the files, and the second was a company that could be fined or closed or sued, legally speaking. And they exploited these central points of failure, and it failed, basically. So when we talk about blockchain, we are talking about something that has born in the context of the search for a BitTorrent for money. So when you want to do a BitTorrent, well, actually, oh no, when you want to do a BitTorrent for money, you have three main problems. The first problem is the who problem. The who problem is who is going to sign a transaction, and how can he prove that he has the legal and actual right to do that, and nobody else can do it in his place. Because with the centralized system, that's very easy. You use a database with a username and a password. But if we have a BitTorrent of money, and every one of us has the database with everybody else's password and username, everybody will spend everybody else's money. So the problem here is how can we prevent that? This is not blockchain. Many people is going around speaking about this problem as the problem solved by the blockchain. This is not the problem solved by the blockchain. This problem was already solved by eCash, and it's called digital signature. This has, it has nothing to do per se with the blockchain itself. It's something discovered earlier and working also in a certified email and in a lot of mainstream contexts. So the digital signature is not blockchain. It is quite simple. We have a transaction graph where we declare the input that we want to spend. We add a proof that we can spend that input, basically publishing the associated public key and the signature that prove that we can that we possess the private key, and then we lock the funds in a transaction output. This is how Bitcoin works, but this is also how eCash basically worked before Bitcoin, way before Bitcoin. So problem who was already solved 20 years before the problem of the Napster of money. The second problem is the what problem. So if we have a centralized company like eGold, we can base the value of the asset on the promises of eGold about the gold in these vaults. So one eGold is 1 ounce of gold. If you trust them, it works. But if you don't have anymore a single point of failure, if you don't have anymore a single company, so that's very complex to do, to have a pegging with something, because there is no one that can redeem that the virtual something with something real. Just imagine that everybody in this room pledge to exchange anonymously or pseudonymously pledge to exchange every virtual token with a physical ounce of gold. It will not work, basically. Well, it will work because we are all honest and good people, but if we enlarge a little bit the room, it will fail very fast and very bad, and that's kind of problem. So the what problem was also solved by B-money. Basically, it was difficult to make it work properly, but it was based on Hashcash. Hashcash was a system invented by Adam Beck basically as an anti-spam measure. You have to cryptographically prove that you destroyed some resources, that you sacrificed something real, something scarce, something rival, economically speaking, in order to prove that you possess something. So the transferable Hashcash was something already present in B-money. We have the last problem, and this is the end of my historical excursion. This is when the blockchain really come in use. The problem of when. So we already had a system to prove the what. B-money like Hashcash. We already have a system, a very good system to prove the who, digital signature, but we want also to prove the when. The when is the chronological order of the transaction, just to avoid double spending problem. Because if I sign with my true, legit, cryptographical signature a love letter to my wife, but that's legit, that's true, that is my signature, but then I do the same with 3 other girls, and that's the problem, because the signature is still valid, but I spent my heart 3 times. And so the when problem is important. Of course, when you have a central point of any kind, it's not a very strong central point. It's not that if you have 42 banks pooling together to make a shared ledger, they have to give control to a central party in order to prevent double spending. They just have to give up the key that signs the chronological order, which is just not a very powerful key. It cannot expand in behalf of a single bank, so it's just a little portion of power. But if there is like a legal entity, the state, the government, the central bank, that can have this power, then you can just use a distributed database with a multi-concurrency control system, basically. So you just have a central part that decides the chronology of the transaction. But so a centralized timestamp. Bitcoin couldn't have that because it was the BitTorrent of money, not the Napster of money. Many of the use cases that now you hear about in the blockchain space are based on something permissioned and trust-based with a central point or a multiple point of trust. So the point to have a blockchain to provide answer to the when question is missing completely. They have already a central point that can timestamp centrally. So what if we don't have a central point? Because we are 53 banks, but we do not trust each other. We do not want to give this to the World Bank and go so on. We have to reach a consensus among us. Well, we just vote. We use our digital signature to vote because we are known parties. We are static parties. We are not dynamical and pseudonymous parties. So there is no point to do something more complex than simply sign and vote for the chronology. The chronology with a certain threshold will reach finality, and we are okay. There is no reason to go beyond this point for something which is not similar to what Bitcoin was trying to reach. So you just vote. The problem is that in Bitcoin you cannot vote because you have Sybil Attack. Since you don't want to restrain the participants to a fixed, nominal, known, and static set of players, then you have Sybil Attack. Every node can vote twice or 100 times, just faking up nodes on Amazon, like the early Bitcoin XT nodes or something like that. And you fake it, and you can alter the transaction, and you will never reach finality. So here, the idea of Nakamoto to take back the reusable proof of work and to put it back into the project with a previous block hash, the set of transaction, and the difficulty solution. We have still another problem. Why would ever people destroy or sacrifice scarce resources in order to provide this proof of work? Why? If there is not a reason to do that, they will sacrifice a very small amount of resources. So the system will have a very small security, because to overcome that small resources will be very easy. If they have to spend a lot of resources to make it secure, they want to have a reason to do that. That was the real genius, not technological but economic genius of Satoshi Nakamoto, to basically interbreed the what with the when. So what you transfer is part of the proof that you actually completed a block in solving the when problem. So this is the blockchain. Basically, the first example in the world of decentralized trustless timestamp. Or better, proof of publication, which is a more correct definition, because, well, maybe I will make some distinction later. Okay. So now we get to the. I think it's not updated with the last thing I did, but who cares? Now I have a very simple graph.
We do. Just.
Okay, no problem. Later I will distribute maybe a version that during the afternoon I changed the presentation a lot. And so there were like not just two colors, but like 3 colors, and it was more complex. But this is already enough complex. So maybe if you try to just, yeah. Let's see.
It's been updated.
Okay, cool. So, perfect. Okay. Okay. This is another part that I added just a few minutes ago here. So many of you will notice that I was speaking about blockchain, always referring to the proof of work. What about other kind of blockchain not using a proof of work? Is it possible to reach a decentralized proof of publication system without using Hashcash style proof of work? The answer is, meaning that I use a metaphor for this. This is the trust-based system where you have a centralized party deciding everything like a bank. You have horses, which are the trust, and that's how it worked before. And this is Bitcoin with proof of work. It's not finished. It's very early stage. It is 1885, the first car of the history. It's not very pretty. It is slow. It doesn't keep a lot of people on. It smells very bad because the proof of work, the oil, the gasoline, is smelly. It's not good. It's not pleasant. But it works. It does work. So these are private permissioned blockchain. They are called Hoover wagons. They actually existed for a while, and so we use all the heavy and usefully complex, uselessly complex structure of a car, but use the answered method, the trust, to move them. So this is a private permissioned blockchain. This is a proof of stake or Ripple-like mechanism. This is a Tesla. We are in 1885. We discovered the engine working with this smelly gas and smelly oil. It works. We can imagine that someday Elon Musk will come with a Tesla that is clean, it doesn't. Maybe, but now it's 1885, and maybe in 2018 we will have a very heavily government-sponsored experiment with electric cars. So is it theoretically possible that there will be other way to do blockchain without proof of work? Probably yes. Tomorrow, Vlad will talk about ghosts. So maybe Vlad is Elon Musk in 1885, and he will reach that point tomorrow or the next year or the next month. It's not impossible at all. Just, in my opinion, a little bit unlikely. And we have to stay with the smelly thing that we know now. That doesn't mean that we could not have this hybrid system. These are not horses moving a car. This is a car moving horses. So if you change the elements, the order of the elements, the hybrid system could work, like using a proof of work as a basis for the distribution of a proof of stake. And Antonopoulos say that in some way Lightning Network is like a proof of stake system. That's kind of strange as a consideration, but it could make sense somehow. So a hybrid system could work. Back to the use case. So as you see now, it's very complicated. It's a three-color, not more. The three-color means respectively, the red is a total incumbent, a very big bank, a very big insurance group, a very big whatever. The green is a startup, is a very little and aggressive startup, and the blue is a outsider. When I say outsider, I mean total outsider, like Silk Road or like something like that, something which is completely out of the reach of the things we can do now. Basically, women in Afghanistan that cannot work and be paid, people in North Korea that cannot exchange, people in Venezuela that want to protect the money of their family, something which is illegal. Not necessarily immoral, not necessarily unethical, but illegal. So this is blue. What I did with this graphic with this graph that, as you notice, is based on very real data, is absolutely not made up just to be symmetric, not at all. I use a very precise metric, which is magic, mysterious utility units to represent the utility. And this unknown parameter to represent the degree of actual use of the technology. Anyway, just to have an image of that, we have these 5 minutes to tell you 5 uses. The first, very useful for incumbents, not useful at all for outsider, and so for startups. This is blockchain as an excuse, using the sentence created by Paul Stork. Basically, we do not do blockchain, but that's so cool to say that we are doing blockchain. So just say that we are doing blockchain. We are doing a database, but no, this is blockchain. So we have, if I work in the IT department, my boss will give me more resources because it's blockchain. If I have a startup, my evaluation will be 10 times more because it's blockchain. It's just an excuse. Maybe I'm doing digital signature. Maybe not even that. I'm just doing generic innovation. Who cares? That works very well so far, at least for the big incumbents. Of course, if you go on the Silk Road and the counterparty paying you paying my cousin for the recreational substances says that he's using blockchain, it doesn't work very much unless they use actually something that works. Second, use cases. Blockchain as a market. This is very interesting, especially for incumbents. Everybody of us uses exchanges. Maybe Bitfinex, incorporated in British Virgin Islands with a Singapore bank. What if an actual Swiss bank operated as an actual Bitcoin exchange? So this is not, we incumbent use the technology to do what we do, but we incumbent will provide services that we can do better to this new market, production, to be custodians, and the famous ETF of the Winklevoss. So not blockchain to move traditional financial asset, but traditional financial instrument to move new asset like Bitcoin. I think this is the most promising one, and you will get a taste on the very precise graph. Then blockchain is an anchor, basically notarization, which means I have to timestamp a contract, and so I put the contract in op-return hashed in the blockchain. Or the opposite, I have to prove I am Julian Assange. I have to prove that I am alive, and so I will tell you the number of the last block to prove it, so that there are the two opposites. Or proof of publication, which is something more complex and more interesting, but I don't have the time to discuss it. This could be interesting, especially for regulatory compliance. I mean, if a bank puts the hash of its database on Twitter or on the blockchain, that's exactly the same thing. Nobody thinks that they will change Twitter just to accommodate the changing in the hacking of a bank. But if your regulator wants something that is provably reliable from a technical point of view in a cart, then blockchain timestamping could be interesting. So moving on, blockchain as a standard. So we don't, this is just interoperability. We don't want to use the blockchain. We don't have a reason to use the blockchain, but the blockchain is everywhere, and so we use it. Just to make a quick example, somebody of you is chatting on WhatsApp with somebody else in this room, writing like, oh, how cool is this presentation, of course. And so this data is going like in China and a router and a switch, and is going around without any kind of technical reason to do so, and getting back in this room. Of course, a walkie-talkie approach would be technically better, technically more scalable here for this use case. But the fact is that internet is already there. We can leverage the infrastructure, the tool, the open innovation, the permissionless innovation, the best practices, the libraries, and so we use the blockchain not because we need a blockchain, but because we already have the blockchain. For example, everybody's going around in 2020. Everybody's going around with a ledger or a Trezor for his Bitcoin. Then to sign PGP, we will use that because we will leverage something already existing because of Bitcoin. So the opposite, the other way around. Of course, digital signature in Bitcoin is not very good. You cannot delegate, you cannot rotate, you cannot. It's not the best, but it could happen at some point. Last but not least at all, Internet of Value. So we actually use Bitcoin. We pay with Bitcoin. We donate to WikiLeaks. We do an escrow, a trustless escrow. We do international money transfer, and smart contracts, and so on. Of course, the more direct is the use, the more this use is useful for the outsiders, and the less becomes interesting for the incumbents. But there are still interesting points that I think we could do good business with. Thank you, and sorry for the delay.
Perfect timing. Thank you so much, Giacomo. That was really awesome. And we are ready to take a couple of questions if people are still willing to ask. Do we? Do we have any? Seriously? Oh.
I might be like hallucinating right now and what I'm going to talk about. Well, how he elaborated kind of this ingredients that Satoshi used, in a way, we can look at it as if he was limited, you know? On the other hand, yeah, he has these perfect solutions over the time by these people, and by challenging those problems, he might have created, then I love the harmony of the decentralized consensus and everything, you know, but still, he might have lost the purpose of the product that it was meant for. And kind of, do you think that Bitcoin is a kind of event that happened? It does not really serve the purpose of decentralized money. What it is it more of what we really ended up with and how we're going to evolve? Because the chances and probability that he might kind of made it due to the limitations in a way, he could not create a perfect substitute of the exchange medium, how we can see it.
My answer would be basically this. Is this the perfect substitute of this? No, not yet. Not yet. Bitcoin is not yet digital anonymous cash. It will be maybe with a price stability, in the very high price stability in the future, after it become a store of value. Maybe with Lightning and this kind of stuff, it will be very fungible and very scalable. I actually think so, and it will not take so long. But right now, it is, Bitcoin works. It worked in some use cases. It was used to keep WikiLeaks alive when every other way of payment was down. It served the online unregulated markets. It is used as a store of value for my cousin that seeks anonymity of his financial resources. I don't have a male cousin, so no, actually I have one, but he's young. And or by people trading freely on the internet. So it is working. It is not yet a Volkswagen of the last generation. It could use some improvement. Also, as Vlad said, it's more complex to improve Bitcoin than to improve a car. With a car, you just improve the car. You care for interoperability because you don't have to change the fuel hole unless it is interoperable. Okay, you have some regulatory restrictions, but basically you can innovate more. With Bitcoin, the thing is that to reach this consensus in a realistic, decentralized, working in a real world way is something like a perfect storm that is very difficult to replicate in the lab. So my answer would be, I think that Bitcoin works exactly as expected, which is not as maybe imagined in the first year by some technically unaware enthusiasts like myself. When I first discovered Bitcoin, I didn't have a clue about its scalability intrinsic limitation, about its fungibility intrinsic limitation, very hard to overcome. It was just, okay, next year we just take over the world, the government will shut down everywhere, nobody will take back. No, we will have to wait a little bit.
Okay, yes, please.
Thank you. I really liked some of the acronyms that you came up with. Blockchain as an excuse, blockchain as a market, I think. Although the first one I would like to call it blockchain as a hobby. That's what most of my clients do. They just dabble on the side and focus on the main thing that paying their bills. But in any case, the question for you is, on the chart from right to left, on the bottom of the spectrum, where I think the Internet of Value is more like the Nirvana future state. Where do you think, or what is your take on 2017? Where will you land up? Will you land up in the middle, or will you land up in the far right? Which far right may be two of the best of the ideal state or utopia?
I think that 2017. Now I'm just doing the Nostradamus, so I just go random. I mean, I don't know. But if I had to bet, I will use Bitcoin to bet in a trusted escrow for bets, and I will bet on a 2017 explosion of this Bitcoin as a market. I mean, it's so easy for some bank to stop playing around with private blockchain and to start to serve the market that needs them better than all the new outsiders. I mean, a bank could be a better fiat exchange than an outsider. Full stop. And so it's a niche market, but it's interesting. So this could be the explosion here. This is slowly growing. Maybe there's Nostradamus again. 2 years. We need more scalability. There is no rush to have more scalability, in my opinion. I mean, now we have a perfect store of value. I don't have money in my bank account. I don't care about paying coffee with Bitcoin, actually. But we will need it. We urgently need more fungibility and privacy, and that's a serious and emergency. Then this is very interesting. This will going to crash down soon, I hope, because we had enough of it. And this is the last step, because to be a standard, if I want to do blockchain just because all the internet style, I use the internet just because everyone is using it. I use the cloud, not because I'm building an intranet of my company, but in the cloud. Why, technically speaking? Because of interoperability with something already there. This will be the last step. This will be something more maybe 2020.
Great. Thank you so much. Giacomo
Thank you.
Zucco, Blockchain Live. Thank you for awesome presentation. Thank you.